Alright, so there's this video here from the DC Shorts. And clearly by the title of their video, altercation in the airport after baby throws food. So, we see here, and I've got the sound off, but they're all yelling and screaming about this. Now it flashes back to what sort of happened. And it turns out, look at this. Chaos erupted in the airport after a baby threw food near a woman. After telling the parents they should pick up the mess, the shouting began. Now, she's basically just saying, if you want to go look at the video, you absolutely can. If you don't, then that's obviously fine as well. Nobody's going to come over and harangue you for not going to watch this video. But this woman basically said, hey, pick up, why don't you pick up the food that your kid just threw? Okay, so she is saying, I told you to pick up the food that the kid threw. And she's saying, it's just a baby. It's just a baby. They don't know any better. It's just a baby. And they don't know any better. Well, they look old enough to know that you can say, no, you shouldn't do that. You should pick that up. Those kids look old enough to pick up food. So anyway, this whole scene plays out, right? And it's yelling and screaming, and she goes away, and she's like, oh, God, like, what a hassle. And then this dude here is like, yo, bitch, take some fries on the floor. And he starts kicking all the food over at her, right? Look at this. Here go the fries, right? Very mature, very responsible, very adult way to handle the situation. So anyway, I'm going to, here we go. We have a point here. And they're like, go away. Of course it was an accident. And this woman, here's the fun part. This woman says, she's only 3 years old. And then this guy's like, she's only 2 years old. And it's like, if this is your kid, you should probably know how old that kid is. But here's the ultimate point of my video. And this is the thing that drives me crazy. Okay, this is the thing that drives me insane. These kids, I don't look at either one of these kids and think, baby. Okay, these are kids. These are children. And I know technically babies are still kids and children. But pretty much my cutoff point for baby is when it starts crawling around. It's no longer a baby. Then it's kind of migrated into child. Because it's getting mobile. It's doing things. When I think baby and somebody says, oh, I've got a baby. Oh, we're bringing the baby over. I'm not thinking of frickin' this kid walking through my door. Okay? Oh, take a look at our baby. Look at our little baby. No. Now, obviously, baby can be a term of affection for a child. But people, I see it again and again and again. They refer to kids that are clearly up and walking. They're like toddlers as babies. They refer to them as babies. And these are not babies. Okay? Baby is like something that you can like swaddle and then put down in the crib. So, sorry, I don't think of these as babies. Once they get crawling, they have migrated for me. And while it may seem somewhat insignificant, I ultimately think that it's not actually that insignificant. I think there is a significance to how we term it. Because we are allowing the infantilization of people, and in this case, they're kids, but people in general. It's the infantilization of people, and it allows them to stay young, and it gives excuses for poor behavior. It tells us, if we're continually referring to this kid, and maybe this one, I don't know who they're talking about here, if it's this one even. But if we keep talking about them as babies, in our brain, we will say, this child is only capable of so much. And babies are capable of pretty much nothing. So I think the earlier we start treating children as though they are older, as though they are more capable, as though they are more progressed, more developed, more competent, the better those children will be, because they will be able to start rising to the occasion. Right? It is very much a truism that people will rise to what you expect of them. But also, people will easily sink to what is expected of them. So if you have, I look at it as sports. We look at things as sports. Because that's a very, very very visceral image. Things happen very clearly in sports teams and on the sports field and everything else. So if you have a coach of a team that is permissive and they allow things to slide, you will get a lot more penalties from that team. You will get a lot less focused effort. If it's a team sport that demands certain amounts of unity, you will get less unity. It will be less precise. If you have teams that are very demanding. So if we look at something like synchronized swimming, okay, there's a great deal of uniformity necessary. And if you don't hold them to account when things are out of place, that's just going to get total chaos. But it's a sport, it's in a situation where everybody has to do their job. You can't have half the people trying to lift somebody out of the water while the other half of the people aren't quite getting around to it yet. It's going to be a disaster. And this is what happens in society. When society allows people to just kind of willy-nilly go through and not develop at an appropriate pace and not step their game up and not behave appropriately, you end up with a disastrous society. You end up with chaos within society. And that's what this is. And I'm not saying that the interaction between this family and that other woman is because they call their kid a baby. Or even that this is necessarily what these people are always like. Although, by the way that this guy reacts and starts kicking the food across the floor, I tend to think it is. Because if this was just a one-off instance, he probably wouldn't have done that. It probably would have just stayed in the realm of yelling from the stress of travel or something. But you end up with situations like this where chaos erupts, right? Because these kids throw food on the ground and they're old enough to probably know better. But then you have another situation where the parents don't say, hey, come on, Johnny or Jenny or whoever that is, pick up the food. You threw it down, you have to pick it up. That's the rules. You got to do it, right? Or else insert punishment here, okay? Then, because that doesn't happen, this other woman now comes over and she's like, look, this is unacceptable. And it sounds like maybe the food was thrown near her or something. I don't know. But even if not, maybe she's just like, look, frick, there's people that are walking around here. Nobody wants to see the food on the floor. And if somebody steps on those fries, they're going to get ground into the rug. And that's going to be unsanitary and unsightly. So she's like, please, just, pick up your kid's food. And these people then are like, hey, who are you to tell us what to do? This is just our baby, blah, blah, blah. Right? And then she starts yelling, it's just chaos. It's chaos. So everybody needs to stop infantilizing people. Set the expectations high. Say, this is what is demanded. This is what has to be done. And it doesn't have to be done in a military manner where if somebody says, you're going to pick those fries up or I'm going to, give you the whooping of your life. That's not going to help anybody. But if you start when they're young and you say, hey, pick up the fries. You dropped something on the floor. Time to pick it up. And then you go over with them and you're like, oh, here, this is how we do this. We're going to pick this up and make it all clean. And then the kid does it and you give them a big hug and you say, oh, way to go. Good job. That's so nice. Let's go throw that in the garbage now. And then you walk them over and you spend the time doing this, that with some positive reinforcement where you give them encouragement along the way and celebrate them when they do it right. By this age here, they're probably not going to be doing it nearly as much. Now, they're toddlers, so they're going to have temper tantrums and they're going to continue to make mistakes along the way. But like I say, I just, when I see people calling kids like this, to get back to my original point, it drives me insane because to me, it's not just that they're calling them babies. It is, it shows that there is a lack of expectation. It shows that they are allowing the infantilization of these people. And I think that they're not the only ones. I think in our society, this has become a major issue. When we look back to, 1850s, kids that were, 10, 11, 12 years old, they were, out there chopping wood. They were handling rifles. They were, shooting at coyotes that were coming in to get the herd. And, they were out there milking cows at 5:30 in the morning. That they were expected to do these things, and they were capable of doing it, because as humans, as a species, we did not survive for so long on the planet and make it to the top of the food chain by being incompetent and being incapable. So the expectations need to be raised across the board, or all we will do is continue to sink into a chaotic morass.